more intact than right now today. As you see with people like Lindsey Graham, here's people like McConnell, and the comments they're making about how they're planning to orchestrate this trial.
What's
It does not sound like
check this out, right? I told you niggas a long time ago that the Senate is going off. We got what they call it. The Senate is not gonna impeach Donald Trump. See, the Democrats run the House, but the Senate's run by the Republicans. You know what I'm saying? And they've all agreed they're not voting Donald Trump out. They're not going to vote Donald Trump out. They're not going to impeach it. That's why he said, now he wants a short trial. I want to show you proof. You feel me? So my words becoming fast. He be tripping. They be tripping. They be tripping. I mean, my words are coming.
And that just really gets to the fact that this is a
in the House, and I want to vote.
congressional report.
Yeah.
Use the record that was assembled in the House to pass impeachment articles as your trial record. I don't want to call anybody. I don't need to hear from Hunter Biden. I don't need to hear from Joe Biden. We can deal with that outside of impeachment. I don't want to talk to Pompeo. I don't want to talk to Pence. I want to hear the House make their case based on the record they established in the House, and I want to vote.
CNN congressional reporter Lauren Fox is live in the nation's capital. Lauren, is this really what we can expect, or is Graham just talking to an audience of one right now? Well, this has been a talking point we've heard from a lot of Republicans over the last week in conversations I've had with rank and file members. They certainly seem to be marching toward this idea of a shorter trial. And remember, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has not been shy about the fact that that is his preference. And one of the reasons is that there are a lot of moderate members for whom this could become a very contentious back and forth if they are asked to vote individually on every witness that the president might want to see on the floor of the Senate. I mean, that is basically asking these members to be with the president or to vote in a way that might help them in their reelections. I mean, if you can imagine Susan Collins having to take a vote on whether or not she wants to hear from the whistleblower in the well of the Senate, that could be a very controversial vote. So that is why some Republicans are certainly making the case that a shorter trial might be better. Now, whether or not their Democratic colleagues agree with that may be irrelevant, because those folks won't have the final say on what the Senate trial actually looks like. That's Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who has the final authority on how this trial will be run on. He has made comments this week sounding like it's going to, and if it's up to him, be short, and he also knows how it will end, which is that the president will not be removed from office. He said those remarks publicly. Lauren, stand by, because I want to bring in Washington Post congressional reporter Karin DeMers as well. Karin, why not even at least try to pretend to be a fair judge? Well, impeachment is not a pure court process, and the senators have to be.
The words of God have come to pass, so good.
Being a juror, and that requires being
They're
fairly
not
unbiased,
going to impeach Donald Trump.
and yet also being an elected official, which is a political.
And he's going to win the election.
It's fairly a political process as well.
I'm trying to tell you.
Existing in that hybrid space, there's never really been a dictionary definition or a statutory definition for how you do it. In the past, it seems like senators have been a little bit more skittish about the idea of seeming biased or seeming to have preconceived notions.
Words of God
wanting to keep the veneer of an impartial juror more intact, I think, than right now. Today, as you can see with people like Lindsey Graham, with people like Mitch McConnell, and the comments they're making about how they're planning on even orchestrating the Senate trial, It does not sound like it has, it's
Man,
disinterested.
anytime.
Fine, Americans are split on impeachment. Or in fact, more think the president shouldn't be impeached. If the president isn't going to be convicted in the Senate, are Democrats concerned at all that they're risking too much here, Lauren? Well, certainly, I think those moderate members in the House of Representatives who are won in districts that the president won in 2016, they're the folks who are having to walk the tightest line here. You know, Tom Malinowski is a Democrat from New Jersey in a swing district. He held a town hall just a few minutes ago, and here's the reception he got when he told the crowd that he was planning to vote for those articles of impeachment.
Based on the evidence that I have seen in the depositions, in the hearings, in the documents I have seen, I believe that on the 2 counts of impeachment that have been put before us, that the vote should be yes, and I will be voting yes.
And of course, that reaction, very split there. You hear the applauses, and then you hear people standing up. You also hear some boos, and that just really gets to the fact that this is a divisive issue for those members who are in swing districts, who have both Trump supporters and liberals in their district who they're trying to make happy. It's a difficult balance. Speaking of New Jersey lawmakers,
I'm so crazy. Guys will come to
one of the 2 Democrats we've talked about who have come out against impeachment, Congressman Jeff Van Drew, met with President Trump and is even considering switching parties. What's going on here? Right. The reporting that my colleagues have suggested after that meeting that there is going to be a party attacking with Jeff Van Drew. He's not saying that that's the case yet, but our sourcing says that that's expected to happen. Jeff Van Drew has been one of the critical Democrats when it comes to impeachment. He has given the most he has given the statements that seem to be the most unconvinced. They've questioned the wisdom of this since the get-go. And he has been basically the naysayer in the Democratic Party when others in the moderate camp, as Lauren referenced, those being such important members, have kind of come around to decide with Pelosi, with the rest of the party, and back these 2 articles of impeachment. And we never did that. And it seems like it's gearing up potentially to have him not be a Democrat anymore, which has to do, I'm sure that this decision is going to have to do more with both where his politics lie, not just on the question of impeachment, but also, the Democratic Party right now is a very pro-impeachment party, even if half the country is not in favor of impeaching the president. I think those numbers are much, much higher for Democrats. And if you're looking at your internal polling numbers in a swing district and running as a Democrat when you were one of the very few to say, no, I can't do this, and support the president, that complicates your re-election race too. So it's going to be interesting to see when he makes that switch, and if there is a rationale behind that. It's interesting to talk about the fractures within the Democratic Party, because I remember for so long talking about those fractures in the Republican Party, and right now we're hearing from at least the minority leader in the House, Kevin McCarthy, that there will be no defections when it comes to voting on those articles of impeachment. But I just wonder in the Senate, when it comes to the proceedings, or the idea of trial, no witnesses, are all Republicans on the same page? Because they were up in arms about not hearing from more witnesses in the House process. Well, it's funny. A couple of weeks ago, when I started asking Republican senators what their preference was in this trial, you heard from people like Rand Paul who wanted to hear from the whistleblower. You also heard from some moderates who said, I want to be very careful to make sure that I don't look like I'm trying to cut this process short. I want to make sure my voters back home think that I really listened to a case against the president. Now those same members, those moderates, seem to be sort of changing their mind a little bit, because they're realizing that they might have to be forced into some very tough votes if this starts to extend more than a couple of weeks, if this extends past the point of where the House managers would present their case and White House counsel would present their case. Then they start to get into this tough up and down vote process where they're going to have to take some contentious and tough votes. So I think that it's really started to shift on it, and I think it'll be interesting to see over Christmas what the polling is, because perhaps if the polling starts to show that this is good for Republicans to drag this process out, maybe that starts to shift again. So I think that we have to watch and see how some things sort of shake out in the upcoming week. Real quickly, Karin, if you will, people like Mitt Romney have expressed that they're open to listening to the evidence when it comes to
Trump is going to win the election.
Do you get the sense that the Republicans may not all be lockstep in the Senate? I think that there's a handful that are leaving that possibility open, but there were a handful of Republicans who left that possibility open in the House when that process started too, and that possibility quickly closed as the proceedings went on. So I would not bank necessarily on those Senate GOP members who are talking that way, sticking that way all the way through. We'll have to take signals and signs from how they start to speak as the trial progresses. I think that shifts it all. All right, I'm Harrison Lauren Fox. Thanks, ladies. As the impeachment engulfs the White House, President Trump has hit the road, attending today's Army-Navy game in Philadelphia. In fact, just last hour, he met with players in their locker rooms. Then he did the coin toss. CNN's Sarah Westwood is there for us. Sarah, some interesting optics here. That's right, Anna, perhaps a welcome distraction for President Trump. He received a warm welcome from the audience here at Philadelphia's Lincoln Financial Field. That audience consists largely of current, former, and future military service members. This is the third time the president has attended the Army-Navy game. He came last year and then once as president-elect, and he's the 10th president to come to this matchup. So it's something of a tradition for presidents to come to the Army-Navy game. Now, as you mentioned, when the president got here a little over an hour ago, he first went to the Army locker room, then to the Navy locker room, rallied the players before the game, and he touted a reform that would allow the graduates of the military academies to play sports professionally before they complete their military services if they're good enough to go pro. Trump said that it was the coach of the Army team who first brought that issue to his attention. That's a reform spearheaded by Defense Secretary Esper. Now, we did see the president also participate in the coin toss alongside Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. The president loves to point out that Pompeo was a West Point graduate. And just a few moments from now at halftime, the president, who's now watching from the Army side, will cross the field, go over to the Navy side. That's a tradition. Commanders in chief that attend the game, they don't want to seem like they're being biased towards one side of a military branch that's being represented at the game, so they watch half of it from one side, half of it from the other side. But on a more somber note, this game will also be honoring the 3 Navy sailors who were shot at the Pensacola Naval Air Force Base down in Pensacola, Florida, earlier this month. Those 3 sailors will be honored by the co-captain of the Navy game, but also some of their fellow service members will be wearing special commemorative patches to honor their memory at this game, Anna. Bittersweet moments there for that reason. Thank you, Sarah Westwood, for that reporting. North Korea has said it successfully conducted another crucial test at its missile site, the second in just a week's time. At the same site, Kim Jong-un says he would dismantle, plus fighter or uniter. The 2020 Democratic candidates attempt to define themselves for voters while turning up the heat on each other. And the Supreme Court steps into the fight over whether the president must release his financial records. You're live in the CNN Newsroom.
Look, she's what an auto.
Telling you, man. Telling you, man. This was gonna happen, right? This was gonna happen, right? But like I said, Donald Trump, right, wasn't gonna happen, right? Donald Trump, they want to take it to the Senate, right? You feel me, for trial. You feel me? They will bring their everything for the Senate already agreed. You feel me? By the Republicans ruled that. You feel me? If it's all Republicans in the Senate, you feel me? Then the Democrats. You feel me? And it's more Democrats in the
I see an award-winning service and a trade desk full of experts available
House of Representatives. That is more
with zero commissions on online trades.
So that's why, like, if the Republican want to have someone go past the House, you feel me? That they have to try to get a lot of Democrats on their side. The Democrats want to go against. The Democrats want to go against someone in the Senate. But they have to get a lot of approval from the Republicans. Depends on how many Democrats win the position for Senate seat. In the whole mill. Now they have a lot of senators, but they have like main appointees, like main people that are appointed. You feel me? In the Congress, you feel me? Yeah, a lot of senators in the states. Yeah, state senators, they are federal senators, but these are the federal senators. Okay. And then, so you do it like that. So that's how it goes. So now that they had this complaint about Donald Trump, they want to impeach him. You feel me? That they would take it to the Senate. The Senate just told it bro, we're not doing none of that shit. You feel me? We're not, we don't even think about it. We're not even got going moving out the office, bro. You feel like, bro? Said, man, his economy is good. You feel me? Everything. You feel me? So they're like, yeah. But they don't know, like, God is doing all that. God is written all that. He's doing all that shit. Like, bro, he's doing all that stuff. Like, those stuff is not written, bro. Cause he's doing all that stuff. Okay. So now, so they just like, okay. So they don't go to the Senate. The Republican only have one seat in the Senate. So, but the Republican, they don't vote the complaint down. And then they might go to the last person or whoever. And then he gonna take recommendations of the Senate. He has to take the recommendation of the Senate. You feel me?
Pyongyang claims it conducted
what it called a
postal test
to it
the launch
against
site.
impeaching him.
Second one in just over a week.
You feel me?
State-run media there says the test was late Friday. It was part of a nuclear deterrence system.
Because a lot of people going
exactly
against impeaching him, saying that would be the wrong thing to do for the economy. You feel me?
CNN's Paula Hancock has the latest.
Which is, so exactly what you do, y'all are screwed, bro.
From North Korea in just
You
1
missed the
week.
7
Now we've heard from Pyongyang through state-run media that it, just like last weekend's test, was very important. It was crucial. It was successful. And this particular one, although Pyongyang hasn't specified what they tested, they say was important for nuclear deterrent. Now, it is at the same site as last weekend as well. This is the Sohae satellite launching ground. This is an area that the US President Donald Trump, when he met with Kim Jong-un in Singapore, said that Kim Jong-un had told him he would dismantle the area. Satellite imagery, according to experts, showed that he had in fact dismantled some of it, but earlier this year there was evidence that it was being rebuilt once again. So what we understand from last weekend, according to experts and South Korean officials, is that they believe it was an engine test that could power either an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile, which could potentially hit mainland United States, or it could be used for a satellite launcher. Now, we don't know at this point what was tested this weekend. We do know, though, that North Korea has threatened a Christmas gift, a year-end deadline, a new path to the United States, depending on, it said, what the United States was going to do with negotiations with North Korea. We also know that we are expecting as well the US Special Envoy for North Korea, Steve Biegun, arriving here in Seoul. So this test comes just before he arrives here, where he is going to have talks with South Korean officials. It was seen potentially as a last-ditch effort before the end of the year to try and re-engage North Korea, but clearly North Korea at this point is focusing on its testing. Paula Hancock, CNN, Seoul.
To New Zealand now, where police divers are searching murky waters contaminated by Monday's volcanic eruption on White Island.
My name is bro, I be telling you my name, bro. Yeah, I need to know.
That brings the death toll to at least 16. The volcano erupted Monday, while dozens of people were visiting.
I'm telling you, bro.
Meanwhile, today,
There's God all over it, bro. And you don't even see it. Y'all don't have the spiritual eye, like, I don't even see it, bro. You don't see the spiritual eye, you don't have the spiritual eye.
Crystal's sister and
Yeah,
her father
I see it. Red word of God is coming back.
The 2020 Democratic candidates are sharpening their attacks
Prophecy
on
of
each other
Daniel
and they
coming
pitch
back.
themselves to voters. Two things that keep coming up:
Prophecy
age
of
and
Daniel,
electability.
Jeremiah,
I'll speak with Rapper Killer Mike
Isaiah,
about why he's
Revelation
supporting
is
Senator
coming
Sanders
back.
and the concerns the
You know why I
party
know the
are
prophecy
left
of Daniel
with
is Revelation? Because the prophecy of Daniel talks about the fall of Babylon.
I just learned so fast.
You feel me? Jeremiah tells you what Babylon is. You feel me? And Revelation reminds you about the fall of Babylon. Oh, man, come on. They don't even say it. They don't even say it. Come on.
Navage uses powered suction to flush out allergens.
They don't even see me. Then it's wrong.
Congestion's gone, and I feel
The
great.
creator of heaven and earth
Trusted by
is
happy
about
dogs
to
everywhere.
destroy man.
Major decongestant online and at these fine retailers.
And is about to make the precious come on through the water
No one can connect you with
and
high-quality
destroy
singles like
America.
New Harmony. That's why every 14 minutes, someone finds love on New
We're
Harmony.
in
Start free today.
Revelations.
Get away from you. Use the Home Advisor
If the
app.
prophecy
Instantly open
of
a
Daniel
Operating Pro. Be prepared for whatever home projects come your
is
way.
about
Download the free Home Advisor app today.
the world
A lot of folks ask me
and
why their
full
dishwasher doesn't get everything
of
clean. And I tell them it may be your detergent. That's why more dishwasher brands recommend Cascade Platinum.
Jeremiah.
Especially designed with the soaking, scrubbing, and rinsing
What's
built
up?
right in.
What is
Cascade Platinum's unique action
possible
packs
and
resolve
who
quickly
is
to remove stuck on
possible
food or sparkling clean dishes.
in
Choose
Revelation
the detergent that lets your dishwasher
tells you
Cascade Platinum, the #1 recommended brand in North America.
the season of the time era
Let's talk about the truth. You did it. I want to know why you did it.
when you see the sign
Inside the crystal back-to-back
that they
episodes
start
starting tonight at 9.
the Revelation tells you Revelation is supposed to be the end of time,
New Year's Eve live on CNN.
the coming of God's word. So what if everybody believe in God's word? Do you understand what I just said? You know what I'm saying? People always say, I say people never say Emmanuel. God is with them. Emmanuel. Emmanuel means God is with them. This word up.
I was absolutely overwhelmed with death. It was bad. So I made the
God is about to do something.
It was a little scary at first, but bankruptcy turned out to be the best thing for me.
God is about to show his power.
After my bankruptcy discharge, I was really careful and worked hard to rebuild my credit. It's taken a few years, but now
God is about to show the world his glory. My God, Jehovah, Jehovah, Yeshua, Emmanuel, God is
Closed
with
captioning brought to you by TheraWorks Relief. Prevent and relieve muscle cramps.
Jehovah,
If you suffer from muscle cramps,
Emmanuel,
TheraWorks Relief can
God
help.
is with
Get TheraWorks Relief today.
God
Available in
is
stores everywhere.
something. So,
Welcome back. In the 2020 race, Senator Elizabeth Warren is attacking
God
Biden.
is
Biden's going
about
after
to
Buttigieg.
do
Buttigieg is
something.
taking a jab at Senator Warren, but at the end of the day, who's actually
God
winning
is
over
about
voters
to
to
show
be
up.
the Democratic nominee?
I'm telling you.
CNN's Abby Phillip reports it's not just a fight for votes,
And
but a
Donald
fight
Trump,
for what the Democratic Party stands for.
and Donald Trump,
If you can't bring the country together, we're in real.
you are the king that God is going to show his awesome power on.
When I got into the race, I knew what I'd be fighting for.
I'm a shepherd,
With just 52
a shepherd of the Most High God.
candidates are, it appears to be,
Jehovah, Yeshua, Emmanuel,
it goes
God is with me.
What we need to do right now is galvanize, not polarize.
God is good.
taking a jab
God is awesome.
We will fight when we must fight. But I will never allow us to get so wrapped up into fighting that we start
But his words do not come past.
Biden echoing that message, criticizing the progressive candidate's approach on health care. These guys are saying, my way or the highway. Warren hit back in a major speech in New Hampshire, and without naming them, targeted Biden. Unlike some candidates for the Democratic nomination, I am not a Republican politician. As Elizabeth Warren has stalled at the polls, she's upped her criticism of her more moderate rivals. I'm not betting my account on the naive hope that if Democrats adopt Republican critiques of progressive policies or make vague calls for unity, but somehow the ultimate welcome Biden insists that is wrong, telling donors and fundraisers that if we can't unify the country, you all ought to go home now because nothing is going to happen except
I'm not trying to be rude to you. I'm not trying to be wrong to you. But I'm telling you, bro. Donald Trump. I'm telling you, God is going to use him, pregnancy, all this stuff. God is going to help you make America strong. God said He can bring it down in the next 5 years before you get out of. I'm telling you, you think I'm blind. You're in the Bible. You? In the Bible. I think it's your reign. Time, your time. Yeah, man. Yes, sir. America by far. America by far, bro. America by far. America by far, bro. The world gonna be looking to buy. I'm telling you, I'm a prophet of God. I'm a young prophet of God. America by far. But I see all the time. It's crazy everything I say come to pass. I see come to pass. America about to fall. America about to fall. Okay, you don't like me. I gotta be sworn everybody. America will fall. You're not from here, correct your question. America about to fall. I'm telling you. I feel the Bible. They're trying to hush me. All the non-names trying to hush me. They're trying to figure it out. Even so they can escape it. America's about to fall. Everything is going to the way that America's about to fall. Technology needs to reach the height. Knowledge is wrong. It's only 28 to 35 that he really died and he gave me interest in voting. I just left a barbershop full of black people in North Carolina. They are intent on voting for Sanders and people like it. We want progress and we want change. Right, I'm telling you that now. Because we are weather this 18 years old. Been 19 years old.
You're right, he is popular among the younger demographic, but at age 78, he is the oldest of all the 2020 candidates. And CNN polls this weekend, California and Texas show he only has single-digit support with the 65 and older, and not much more than that even with 45 and older. Historically, the older voters tend to be the most reliable voters. Does this struggle to connect with them concern you?
No, I think that a lot of times people go out of fear and told what to do. I think that if young people get outvoted with their doorknob and gain senses at an age that their parents and grandparents will not start to going out and knocking on those doors. I don't think that we should in this moment allow fear to negotiate for us. I think that we should negotiate on the place of fairness and those of
Hey, bro, tell me, bro. It's ready for fall. Oh, he's in the room. Oh. And this also, this election also is going to be a race too. Because some has to win black voters. You vote to know they don't have nobody else to vote and we don't. Anybody at least like Trump.
How that's not always true. You support Sanders. Joe Biden, for example, continues to have the most support of all the candidates among black voters in places like South Carolina. Why aren't the candidates
because I don't need black vote.
Resonating?
I don't have the answer to those questions as I wasn't in their campaign. The campaign I was with has risen 7 points in South Carolina.
This is going to be a big issue in this time.
And it's because he's not asking you to vote for him on matters of color or matters of people of color or matters of just being black or just matters of being sympathetic to our cause for over 60 years, because he was the guy that was chained to black people protesting 50, 60 years ago. He's asking because his policy directly affects our community. Well, how does it do that, Michael? We know that disproportionate health care is something that's not afforded to black and poor people in this country. His policy directly affects that. We know that the school to prison pipeline must be ended. We know that his tuition programs for trade and college programs help to end that. We know that we need restorative justice in matters of marijuana. His policy does that. And we know we need to radically end how we deal with prisoners and addiction in this country, and he also deals with it.
Let's end on a less serious note of something you know a little bit about this. Bernie Sanders slow jams the news. You're a music producer. I want you to listen to Sanders' performance and tell me if he has a shot in the studio.
We all know you've got a huge heart. No. It's a normal size heart. It's a completely normal, completely fine heart. Check my nails. Bernie, how you feeling? Feeling good as hell.
You're
I put him on the Run the Jewels 4 track. I would definitely put him on our new album. Run the Jewels 4 comes out next spring. Bernie, if you want on, we got a slot for you.
Killer Mike Render, great to have you with us. Thanks for taking the time.
Anna, thank you. Please have a good day.
You too. And a quick note, 2020 presidential candidate Andrew Yang will be joining us for a live interview in our 7 o'clock Eastern hour tonight right here on CNN. Make sure you tune in. It appears the new trade deal known as the USMCA may be on the fast track. Why farmers say its passage is critical to their success. Next, you're live in the CNN newsroom. At Chevy, we're all about bringing families together. This time of year, that's really important.
So we're making it easier than ever to become part of our family. That's why our Chevy employee discount is now available to everyone.
The Chevy price you pay is what we pay.
Not a cent more.
Family is important to us, and we want you to be a part of ours.
So happy holidays and welcome to the family.
The Chevy family.
Get the Chevy employee discount for everyone today.
I'll be home Christmas. You can play Clothes have snow and mistletoe and presents on the tree. Right now, all over the country, kids at Shriners Hospitals for Children are able to go home and be with their families for the holidays. And that's only possible because of the monthly donations from people like you. When you call a number on your screen today, and just a $19 a month, you'll be helping countless children get the care they need to go home for Christmas. With your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day, we'll send you this adorable Love to the Rescue blanket as a thank you, and a reminder of the care you'll be providing so kids can be with their families. Christmas Eve, finding where the love light gleams. It only takes a moment to call the number on your screen, or you can visit loveshriners.org to help other kids just like me be with their families this Christmas. Because every child
I'm telling you, bro, this should be crazy.
And your gift makes that possible. Your
But man, I'm out, man.
Your gift will be my
Hey, some of that America fall, man. I'm sorry. Not like I hate America, nothing. But I don't like America. I love America. I say European country. Don't get me wrong, but not really, man. Why I really don't like America? Because y'all niggas tell me where the world goes. I don't come back. Y'all kept doing everything right. Stop. That mean I had to tell me a lot of things. Oh, like this.
And if necessary, help you find the right place for your mom or dad. We all
it's not
want
me,
the best for our parents.
it's God, the creator of heaven.
A place for mom. Together, we'll
Yeah.
make the right
I just figured it out. I
If you
just
just
figured
want
the
a
Bible
slice
out.
of pizza, you don't buy the whole pie.
Yeah.
So if you don't use your cell phone that much,
I
why
figured
pay
out
for more than
Bible.
you need? For as low as $20 a month, you can get talk, text, and data from
God
Consumer
has
Sailor,
taught
no
me,
contract, and connections on the
help
nation's
me
largest
figure out
wireless
the Bible.
networks. You'll also receive
I
award-winning
figured
support.
out,
Consumer Sailor has
and I
received the
figured out
JD
time
Power
for
Award
the
for
7
highest customer
weeks.
service again. Plus, AARP members get exclusive discounts. Switch
I
to
didn't
JD
want
and get a
everybody.
$25 credit on any new line of
I'm
service.
trying to tell
Call the
everybody.
online
I'm
or
trying to
find us
want
at Target.
everybody.
It used to be the same fight every night over what we were going to make. Now it's like, what are we going to make first? Every night of the week we can have something different. I'm a realtor.
I'm a carpenter. I build them.
Thank God.
And with HelloFresh, it's kind of the same thing. We work together as a team. It's like, boom, boom, you're done. You can change from 2-person to 4-person.
Like when my family comes in town,
We love HelloFresh so much. We tell all our friends about it.
I think we should be spokesperson. We're making a TV ad right now for them.
On them, man.
Go to HelloFresh.com and use
Cause
code
I'm
TV9
telling you,
for 9 free meals.
this is how it's gonna happen. And like I said before,
A new trade agreement between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada has American farmers hopeful their darkest days are over. And their optimism is being fueled by news of a possible U.S.-China trade deal on the horizon. CNN Business and Politics correspondent Vanessa Yurkevich visited with farmers in Michigan to get their reaction. It's the morning milking at Corning Farms.
Here's the friendly cow.
For 5 generations, 365 days a year, Jeff Corning's family has been producing dairy in Michigan.
Come on, girls. The past 5 years have been very difficult. We've had cycles in the past where it's been extremely bad, but it lasts for maybe 2 years. To go for 4 years was almost unbearable, and it has been unbearable for several.
But with a handshake deal on the new NAFTA, USMCA, a glimmer of hope.
I was surprised, actually. Getting stuff done in today's Congress has not been very quick. There's too many political moves rather than action. But I'm really excited if it gets done. It'll be great.
Farmers stand to gain a lot from the deal, especially dairy farmers. The United States has lost almost 3,000 dairy farms in the last year, among the most here in Michigan, nearly 1 in 7. But now, Canada has agreed to buy more dairy while eliminating pricing models that allow its farmers to undercut U.S. dairy farmers. Who is this a win for? Democrats, Republicans?
Look, if they get it signed off, it'll be a win for the people.
President Trump flipped Michigan in 2016, supported by farmers with the promise he would help with trade.
See?
About 2/3 of the state's agricultural exports went to Mexico and Canada in 2018.
We're only 42 miles from Canada right here. And so our ability to compete with Canadian products coming in, imported into Michigan, is important. We need to be able to be on a level playing field.
Jason Rulig says USMCA is a small victory during one of the most challenging times in farming. But the agreement fails to help specialty farmers like him.
We do a lot of the hot peppers.
Who rely on foreign labor to work his fields.
If we don't find a way to address these shortcomings in a guest worker program, we're going to be non-existent in 3 years.
Lori Isley grows soy and corn, 2 crops hurt most by the trade war with China.
These people want to keep it kind of growing. Now it's about to take over.
USMCA won't solve all of Isley's hardships on her farm, but it does give her hope there's an end in sight. Being able to see this one, which we have been talking about for over a year, move forward certainly paves the way, so to speak, for us to say, okay, let's move on to the next step. Let's see if we can take this replicated with China. Vanessa Yurkevich, CNN, Elmira, Michigan. So ahead, will President Trump be forced to turn over his tax documents to House Democrats? He's fought for years to keep them secret, and now it appears the Supreme Court will have the final say.
Mucinex COVID flu all-in-one and 20.
No, don't hurt, man.
Mucinex COVID flu all-in-one. Apparently,
My job. What you guys make up?
Eleanor. It was great grandma's day. So we're in this little town near
But
everyone has dad's eyebrows.
help your family discover their unique story with a gift from Ancestry.
13 years ago, Corbin was diagnosed with cancer. His parents brought him to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
I had no idea what to expect. I
never thought I could do it.
The tumor was the size of a baby.
I never thought I could do it.
I was terrified. He noticed that he has a little bump on his back that's trying to make him sick.
Let me hear.
His doctor said there's a possibility he might get all the surgery. Of course, he said he didn't know until they actually got in there.
So everything went very well.
They were able to get the entire tumor. Oh, thank you so much.
For 12 years, Corbin was cancer-free, but he would need St. Jude again.
My name is Corbin. I'm 15 years old, and I was recently diagnosed with cancer in my right arm.
Are you hurting anywhere?
And it's scary, you know.
Corbin does have a genetic predisposition to develop cancer. The only thing that comforted us was St. Jude isn't going to give up. These doctors and nurses are never going to stop fighting for your child.
Join the fight and become a partner in hope with a gift of just $19 a month. When you join with your credit or debit card right now, we'll send you this St. Jude t-shirt you can wear to show your support.
The strides that they've made in research, that's why we have Corbin today.
Discoveries made at St. Jude are freely shared with doctors and scientists around the world to save more children like Corbin.
The supporters have already done so much for me, and that's why I'm here right now.
I could not imagine my life without it. That's Corbin.
Please call or go online at joinstjude.org. Become a St. Jude partner in hope.
Tell me, bro. Tell you.
Thursday night. Watch it on CNN and your local PBS station starting at 8 Eastern. Everyone.
This holiday season, get your gift giving line during Belt Days with over 500 doorbusters. Men's non-fleece, $34.99. Select Nike and Under Armour, 25% off. Get your jingle on with the best gifts now at Belt. Introducing in-garage delivery, just in time for the holidays.
Well,
Get free in-garage delivery from Food by Amazon when you connect your MyFood app.
alright, that'd be crazy.
Universal Smart Garage Box down to $29.98.
Well, come on. I'm just gonna get in here. Royal America Falls forever. I'm sure all the false man God told you so. Go out there, go when I told you so.
You're CNN, the most trusted name in the news.
I said everybody I told you
For
so.
years, President Trump has been fighting to keep his financial records private. But now, the Supreme Court says it will hear cases over those documents and decide whether or not Trump will have to turn them over. The Supreme Court will decide by June 3 major cases concerning whether the House and the New York prosecutor can subpoena Trump's longtime accounting firm and sue his bank for financial documents. The cases will be decided in the heat of the election campaign. No documents are going to go forward for now while the justices consider the cases. Trump has shielded his documents on multiple fronts since before the election, and the case has implications far beyond impeachment and the Trump era. The House subpoenas in two of the cases give Congress's power to investigate. The House wants the documents as it looks into Trump's finances, foreign interference in elections, and hush money. Trump says that the House has exceeded its authority when asking for these documents. In a separate case, that goes to Trump's claim of absolute immunity in a state criminal proceeding. Lower courts ruled against the president, citing cases concerning President Nixon and President Clinton. After the proceedings are over, what the Supreme Court grants mean today that President Trump's legal problems are far from over, they will continue. There has been a dramatic rise in anti-Semitic attacks here in the U.S. and in Europe. Who's behind the websites that encourage this kind of hate? The CNN exclusive up next.
Wait is over. T-Mobile is lighting up 5G nationwide. While some 5G
Now it start going down.
T-Mobile 5G goes
Life is crazy.
beyond the big cities to the small towns.
Remember I was in T.
Now, millions
There
of
you go.
Americans have access to 5G on T-Mobile, and this is just the beginning.
America is back or far. This is the factor down in June 1. I know what you mean. Matthew.
Wayfair is your way to save up to 70% off and make this holiday magical. Shop everything home at wayfair.com.
The dish voice remote just got even more powerful.
Remember what happened? What the LED
Settle that bet without ever taking your eyes off the
told
game.
you.
How many D1 football teams are
That one, no. Fairy tale. You said that one.
What do you do with that power? Well, that is totally up to you.
Don't be so sad, man. Come on, everyone.
New Dish voice remote with the Google Assistant. Dish tuned into you.
When we were looking for a roommate, he wanted to be private. Yeah, and he wanted someone to help out with chores, so we got John here. So one thing we both agree on was getting help with records insurance. Yeah. Geico did make it easy to fix and save.
Well,
Oh no, there's a wall there now.
Everybody come out in me too. So yeah, America gonna fall. That I feel y'all bothering y'all the way on. So I was seeing chips on y'all the way I knew.
So everyone thought this would be a reality. Sunday night is beach night. All you starting at 8 on HGTV.
You got a house full of football fans who won't take hungry for an answer? Drop a big phone box on them. Whether you need an 8, 12, or 20 piece with biscuits, fixings, and tea, at least don't gnash your teeth on something delicious. It's bow time.
Introducing in-garage delivery, just in time for the holidays.
Okay, see? I really do crazy.
Get free in-garage
I'm
delivery.
telling you, bro.
When you connect your smart
Yeah, I'm so crazy.
smart garage box now at $29.98.
I'm telling you, bro.
Democratic debate. Watch it on CNN in your local.
He's gonna be like, oh, we should have listened.
The FBI says
Why?
it has recovered a white van with a possible connection to the deadly
Well,
shooting in
we
Jersey City. Examining this vehicle now for potential evidence. Meanwhile, New Jersey's Attorney General said the attack is being investigated as an act of terrorism and a hate crime. It comes amid an alarming global rise in anti-Semitism fueled by online websites. Melissa Bell takes a closer look in this exclusive report. Tombstones marked by hate. Federal cultural centers, town halls, schools. In all, 42 anti-Semitic attacks in the Bas-Rhin region of Alsace in just 18 months. This cemetery in the village of Westhofen is just the latest to be desecrated. 107 of its tombs were found marked with swastikas earlier this month, and although the cleanup operation is now underway for a region as covered as this one by anti-Semitic attacks, the stain will be harder to remove.
This kind of symbol costs more than you think. It's the waiting they feel out of their family line die in the Auschwitz and in the Holocaust. So to see it here, where I live, there is a disease in the society. And everybody would like to stop it.
Not least, the French government. France's interior minister visited Westhofen announcing the creation of a national task force. When the graveyard at Katzenheim was attacked, it was the French president who came. Another case that remains unsolved. A source close to the investigation says that the locals are believed to be responsible. Locals who may have been incited by global websites. While the hunt for the culprits continues, we wanted to find out where they are finding encouragement. 2 French language sites registered in Panama and the Bahamas and enabled to stay online by an American company. White Europe and Participatory Democracy both shared pictures of the attacks in Alsace. White Europe celebrated these exemplary actions by the proud people of Alsace that show us the way. Reached for comment, White Europe told us they stand behind their posts. Participatory Democracy told CNN that while they don't condone the attacks, they do believe that it's all a Jewish conspiracy. Both sides celebrating the number 14, a reference to a slogan coined by the late American white supremacist David Lane, and which was also found graffiti on one of the Westhofen tombs. Both of these sites use the American internet infrastructure company Cloudflare, which provides protection from cyber attacks. Both sites openly celebrate anti-Semitism, and that here in France is a crime. Now, in the past, Cloudflare has discontinued its services to 8chan in the wake of the El Paso mass shooting and the American neo-Nazi blog Famous Crime. So what is the when it comes to hate speech that isn't French? Cloudflare have not responded to CNN's questions. CNN also found that Facebook, which does not allow daily Stormer posts to be shared, did allow posts from both the French sites until CNN reached out to comment, after which it blocked them. Twitter allows sharing from all 3 sites, but told CNN that it's taking action to prevent linking to such content. We asked France's Interior Minister in an exclusive interview if the United States was doing enough
to help tackle the problem?
No, and I don't think
No, and my answer is clear because there is a clear difference of culture. It is not about opposing French or European culture to American culture, but clearly on these subjects, there is a belief in the freedom to say anything and everything. I believe that there is no freedom when it is us and our fundamental values that are being attacked.
One victim of the latest attack said that global action is required in the face of a global problem.
If you don't have that, you're going to have others, especially in Switzerland or others, and not just in France. So you see it in New Zealand, you see it in America, you see it in France.
The two appeals of this family is amongst those desiccated and left often. He has yet to show a picture of it to his young daughters.
It's a few marking on sacred stone. It's a few marking that fell out teeth. And in this country, not me, but my family and generations have understood what these mean and what it means to.
In the heavily guarded synagogue in Strasbourg, the city where much of the region's Jewish population now lives, the chief rabbi says that he's not surprised, but that he fears for more than just his community.
The hate, the truth, never end.
Last year, Rabbi Bale buried the last Jew in West Offaly. Roger Kahn hid during the Nazi occupation, escaping the camps and dying peacefully in his seat at 88. But with websites celebrating attacks on tombs like his, the question is whether it is in peace that he will now be allowed to rest. Melissa Bell, CNN, Alsace. More on the historic news out of Washington. The president one step closer to being impeached, and a prediction from one of his biggest supporters, Lindsey Graham. You're live in the CNN News.
When we see enters through our doors, we don't see who you're or the tomorrow will be light or dark. All we see is sun.
When they still see how the way God comes out of there.
Each smile. We see sparks in every eye. We see you find it.
Then where's the Bible? Come from in there. Don't come up here.
The strength. We've seen more about 20 million. The more we look, the more we find the sparks that make America shine.
Do you have concerns about mild memory loss related to aging? Prevagen is the #1 pharmacist recommended memory support brand. You can find it in the vitamin aisle in stores everywhere. Prevagen, healthier your brain, better life.
This holiday season, the frigid temperatures won't show any mercy on the animals who've been left outside in the cold to die. Animals who've been abandoned and neglected, who are freezing with no shelter. And every moment they spend suffering will be one moment too late.
You better enjoy it. God, I'll be peace no more. There will not be peace.
Support more than ever this season. Thousands of lives are on the line. So please call this toll-free number or visit joinaspca.org with your $19 monthly gift now. We need 3,000 new donors in the next 30 days so we can rescue more animals this winter. They're fighting to stay alive. Please find it in your heart this holiday season to help them. Go online or call now and join our fight to rescue these innocent animals from cruelty. And because the situation is so urgent, we're asking you to join in the next 10 minutes. And if you do, we'll send you this free membership kit, including this Animal Champion t-shirt. This is your last chance to get this limited edition item, so act now. It's the season of giving, and your monthly donation could be the greatest gift you give to an enemy who needs you. Go online or call now.
Forget about vacuuming for months. The Roomba i7 Plus with clean base automatic dirt disposal and allergen lock bags that trap 99% of allergens so they don't escape back into the air. If it's not for my robot, it's not a Roomba.
Closed captioning brought to you by Mesobook.com.
We offer a free book on Mesobook. Call for the free book and receive so much more. Call
Maybe it's so going for
3700.
And live in the CNN newsroom, thanks for staying with me. I'm Anna Cabrera in New York. It's just a matter of days. President Trump could become the third U.S. president to be formally impeached, joining the ranks of Presidents Johnson and Clinton. But it could make little difference because as far as Republican senators are concerned, the ending to all of this is clear. President Trump will not be removed from office. Here's Senator Lindsey Graham speaking to CNN's Becky Anderson earlier today.
I want this to end as quick as possible for the good of the Senate, for the good of the country. And I think the best thing for America to do is get this behind us. We know how it's going to end. I am trying to give a pretty clear signal. I've made up my mind. I'm not trying to pretend to be a fair juror here.
CNN congressional correspondent Lauren Fox is live for us in our nation's capital. Lauren, a bold statement from the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Well, that's right, Anna. And this is something that I think a lot of Republicans are trying to decide. You talk to some Republicans and they'll tell you, I can't comment at all about impeachment. I don't want to talk about the process. I don't want to talk about whether I prefer to have witnesses or not because I am a juror. You basically see Lindsey Graham here saying, I don't care if I'm a juror. I've pretty much made up my mind how I'm going to vote
and
on
the Trump doesn't get
of
impeached.
removing the president.
Don't fulfill my promise.
I support the president. I don't think he's done anything
Stop
wrong.
saying.
So a very significant
Not
departure.
going to
Meanwhile,
get
there is
impeached.
a broader debate happening about how the Senate
He's still
trial
gonna be
should
president.
look. We know that Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has made it no secret
He's
that
gonna
he
win
would prefer a
president.
shorter trial with no witnesses, something that could be done in as little as 2 weeks. Meanwhile, you have people like the president himself telling allies he would prefer an opportunity to defend himself, and if that means a longer trial with witnesses, that would be his preference. But here's Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on the coordination that's happening between the Senate and the White House.
Everything I do during this, I'm coordinating with White House counsel. We'll be working through this process, hopefully in a fairly short period of time, in total coordination with the White House counsel's office and the people who are representing the president. I'm going to coordinate with the president's lawyers, so there won't be any difference between us on how to do this. I'm going to take my cues from the president's lawyers.
And clearly, that is a statement that infuriated some Democrats, especially those in the House of Representatives, who argued he's supposed to be impartial. And for the hope of the Senate, they said, this is just an inappropriate comment from the Majority Leader. Anna?
We know at least one Democrat in the House, Congressman Jeff Van Drew, will vote against impeachment. And I understand you have new reporting on
a lot can happen in 5 years.
Well, we expect that Van Drew will change parties as soon as next week. That's according to one senior Democratic aide. And of course, that really does the view of how much pressure these moderate Democrats.
A lot can happen in 5 years, bro.
More than 30 Democrats who wanted District President Donald Trump wanted in 2016. They are really walking a fine line. I watched that town hall earlier with New Jersey Democrat Tom Malinowski. He is another member from a swing district. And when he said he supported those 2 articles of impeachment and that he's going to vote for them next week, he really had a mix in the crowd. Some people were standing up applauding, others were booing him. It just of the pressure these moderates are under. So of course, Van Drew parties a very significant indication of the kind of pressure these members are under. Anna?
Fox, thank you. Former Clinton White House Press Secretary Joe Lockhart is here now, as well as host of SC.
I was saying Joe, but
SC guys, good to have you.
Jay wasn't there.
Is this new reporting about Van Drew switching parties? So what I think the heat that moderate Democrats are facing is real. I also think it can be overplayed a little bit. And I think maybe the proper way to view Van Drew's move is that it's fairly private and calculated. He wants to win re-election, and I don't know that it says anything more writ large about the Democratic Party than it does about this representative in that district at this moment in time. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I think the significance is way overplayed. I think he will be forgotten within days. I don't think he's going to be a hero to Republicans or some villain for the Democrats. It's not really that significant. It's not that important. And, listen, I think a lot of these Trump districts have a significant amount of their constituents who still have some affection for the president. Many are disappointed, but they don't like the impeachment process. But this is very, very different than 1998. And in 1998, Tom DeLay didn't have the votes to impeach Bill Clinton, and he went around and twisted arms and broke arms. My congressman growing up, Ben Gilman, was in for about 3 decades. Tom DeLay told him he would strip him of his foreign affairs chairmanship if he didn't vote for impeachment. This happened multiple times. He did break enough arms to get impeachment. You don't see that coming from Nancy Pelosi. You don't see that at all. She's not doing that. And I think it's a reflection of how different and how much more significant the offense is this time. It goes to our national security, it goes to our democracy. It doesn't go to a personal and terrible mistake President Clinton made. I'm not going to defend it, but it is different. And the Republicans seem to be approaching this with a scorched earth policy the same way they did in 1998.
What else is different, though, is, of course, the nature of the impeachable act as well. And even after hearing all of the debate in the House, all the fact witnesses that came forward during the intelligence portion of the House impeachment hearings, new polls out this week show that really didn't move Americans. They're split on impeachment. 45% say the president should be impeached, 50% say he shouldn't. On top of that, when you look at among Democrats, especially those 31 Democrats in the Trump won districts we've been talking about, 21 are still undecided on how they'll vote. 8 have come out and said publicly they are yes votes, at least one. Van Drew is now no, and there's likely another one that's a no because he voted against the impeachment inquiry to begin with. Meanwhile, I don't see Republicans suffering any defections. In the Senate or in the House? In the House. No, let's talk about both. No, probably not in the House, and that's because I don't think there's any incentive for House members, as of right now, to defect. The Senate, as we've discussed before, is a different, ball of wax. The stakes are higher. History has a much less forgiving view of senators, and it's what they do in these moments that often write their legacy. So you think there will be defections in the Senate? I would not rule out a number of defections. Certainly not the 20 threshold that Democrats would need to remove Trump from office. But if you look at the political landscape, Mitt Romney's got the longest sort of runway. He's not up for re-election until 2024. That gives him a lot of time if he's worried about political punishment from Trump or other Republicans. Well, they don't get to do that for a while. Cory Gardner is another one I'd look at. Lisa McCarthy, Susan Collins. I would look at Ben Sasse. You might look at. I mean, there are a number of Republicans who are very conceivably thinking long and hard about your legacies here. So again, probably not enough. So do you think, Joe, that Mitch McConnell saying we already know how this ends? There's no way he's going to be removed. You hear Lindsey Graham today saying, yeah, we already know how this ends. This is where I'm planting my flag, even though the trial hasn't even started and they're supposed to be impartial jurors.
Yeah, there's a lot of troubling things going on. And Mitch McConnell, a lot of it revolves around him. In 1998, Trent Lott and Tom Daschle, went away and they worked out a plan to do the trial that we were very angry with in the White House.
That was the Democrats and that was the Republicans, the top ones in the Senate.
And the House managers were upset with them. The White House were upset with them. But they did it because they felt this sense that the Senate was different. The Senate was different than the House, and the Senate had this special responsibility. Mitch McConnell is not an institutionalist as much as he tries to say he is. When he held up Merrick Garland, he made a decision. When he invoked the nuclear option on Supreme Court justice, what he cares the most about is staying Senate Majority Leader. And he's got 6 very vulnerable members, and he's going to do at the end of the day what's in their interest. And we're not exactly sure there yet. And I think the big scuffle is going to happen over what the rules are, what kind of trial this is, whether there's witnesses, whether it's a show trial or a sham trial. And people that, as he mentioned, like Cory Gardner and Tom Tillis and Susan Collins, may need to do more than just something that the country laughs at. The senators do want to appear different. I mean, I was struck at the end of this week when a member of the Judiciary Committee, a Republican, after sitting through all of the hearings, came out and tried to tell Manu Raju that the president didn't bring up Biden's name in the call.
Right. When
now she had sat through all of the hearings. There were thousands of pages of them, and she stood there with a straight face and said, "The president never mentioned Biden." That's their point of view, which is fact. We will create our own fact base. The senators, I think, are going to have a little more trouble doing that.
I mean, when you talk about also just, how this is playing out, you have Rudy Giuliani going to the White House on the very day that the judiciary is approving impeachment articles. From just an optics point of view, why?
Great question. And when you talk to folks inside the White House, they will tell you, again, off the record, that they wish that were not the case. They wish Rudy Giuliani would go away and shut up and stop doing what he's doing. And yet, here we are. But I think we have to realize something. To people like you and me, and especially folks in the media, for whom facts matter a lot, we have this idea that this should be impartial, fact-based. We should all just listen to the facts, they will bear out. I believe they have, in Democrats' favor. And then everyone will decide very fairly. And I think we need to remind ourselves sometimes, and Joe certainly knows this, impeachment is a political, partisan exercise, right, inherently. And so this idea of impartiality on either side is probably a fool's errand. And you don't have to look, past Lindsey Graham on the right, or some of the Democratic congressmen and women who said they planned to impeach the president even before he was elected, to see that is true.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Thank you both. Good to have you, Essie Cup and Joe Lockhart. Be sure to stick around. Essie's show is at the top of the hour. Essie Cup Unfiltered. And as impeachment engulfs the White House, President Trump is not there today. He's attending today's Army-Navy game in Philadelphia. And just last hour, he met with players in their locker rooms. He did the coin toss. CNN's Sarah Westwood is there for us, Sarah.
Oh, well, Anna, perhaps this was a welcome distraction for President Trump coming here to the Army-Navy game, where he received a warm welcome from his audience. Many of the people attending this game here are current, former, future military service members, so a really warm reception for the president here. This is his third time attending the Army-Navy game. He came here last year. He also came once in 2016 when he was president-elect, and he's the 10th president to come to this matchup, so it's sort of a tradition at this point. And the president, as you mentioned, went to the Army locker room, went to the Navy locker room upon his arrival, rallied the players, and he also touted a new reform from the Pentagon that would allow the graduates of military service professionally before they go and do their service, if they're good enough to go pro. The president said that idea was brought to him by the coach of the Army team. We also saw him at center field participating in the coin toss, attending this game with him, among a few others, Defense Secretary Mark Esper and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who, as we know, the president loves to mention, graduated first in his class from West Point. Now, at halftime, we saw the president cross the field. He viewed the second quarter of this game from the Army side, the third quarter of this game he viewed from the Navy side. Now, that's a tradition when presidents come to the Army-Navy game. They split their time viewing from both sides of the stand because they don't want to seem biased as commander-in-chief towards one branch of the military represented here over the other. And on a more somber note, out of the 3 Navy sailors who were killed at the Naval Air Station in Pensacola at that shooting earlier this month, they are being honored at this game today, not only by their fellow Navy military service members, but also by players on the Navy team, Anna.
And also worth noting, the last person who is still in the hospital from that incident, that shooting, was just released today. Sarah Westwood, thank you for that reporting. We have new details in a brutal murder of a college student that has rattled New York City. What we've learned about the 13-year-old in custody and other suspects still not charged. You're live in the CNN Newsroom.
CNN Newsroom, brought to you by
After getting crazy. But I'm gonna be out there, man. Remember, I warned y'all and I told y'all. That guy's way back come fast. America by far. Hello. I told y'all. Remember, I told
Of
y'all.
course, but I'm not into games or relationships. That's why I trust the army.
Nobody can connect